all of that to say, what I hope that this conversation and this podcast and any work that we might do together now or in the future helps you to see and do and be is that you're allowed to change anything, everything. You're allowed to cross over. You're allowed to find the sunshine. And sometimes that means finding a whole different street. Sometimes that means just crossing over to the other side. Sometimes there's a lot of fucking traffic that you've got to navigate in order to get there. Sometimes that just means stopping and just turning your head toward the sun. There's a whole spectrum of how hard it is to make changes, but the thing that is the through line for me that I continue to have to remind myself all the time, so I'll continue to remind you too, is that this is your life. What you are living right now is your life. And it's so beautiful to live it in a way that is of service. Welcome to Starfish Hypnosis. I am your host, Liz McKean. In this podcast, we meander through our conscious and subconscious minds, and we do that without a lick of shame. In these episodes, you are going to hear stories. You're going to hear a lot of metaphors because that's how I make sense of the world. We're going to take some big breaths together, and you are going to hear reminder after loving reminder that you are not doing it wrong. Any of this. I am so glad that you're here. So let's go. Hello. And welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here with me on this Starfish Hypnosis podcast day. This, as you may have seen from the title, will be the final episode for season 1 of Starfish Hypnosis. And I'm excited about that because that means we've done enough episodes to have a season 2. And if this is the first episode that you've listened to, good news, there's like couple dozen episodes you can go back and listen to, and there's just going to be a brief hiatus while we kind of get ready for the next season, which will just be still me, sometimes maybe with some guests, and yeah, just a little more intention, I guess, behind this podcast. Not that it hasn't been intentional up till now, but you know, in the very beginning of anything, there's just essentially nothing but experimentation. So I'm excited for season 2 to have some, I don't know, a little organization, as much as my little ADHD brain can do without getting bored. If you know, you know. But before we get into any of that, as per usual, we're going to take 3 deep breaths that I will lead you through. You're welcome to take them with me. You're welcome to skip it. When I say things like breathe in through your nose, please know that it's okay if you have a stuffy nose and need to breathe in through your mouth. All of you is welcome here, exactly as you are. So for now, if you can, see if you can let your shoulders get a little heavier, maybe unclench your jaw, and then take a nice deep breath in through your nose. And out with a sigh. Let something go. I needed that too. Another one. Big breath in. Exhale even longer this time. Twice as long. Yeah, feel those shoulders melt. This last one we're going to hold. Biggest breath you've taken all day. And hold at the top. Keep holding. Maybe a smile. Maybe you close your eyes. One more moment. We can do hard things. And then open your mouth, let it go. Beautiful job. Thanks for doing that. I needed that too. So I had an idea of what I was going to talk about today before I had the idea that this was going to be the season 1 finale. And it just happened to be serendipitously the right topic for either, whether it was a regular episode or a finale episode. And, you know, when those things happen, it just feels like I'm on the right track. So I have a tattoo on my arm, one of several, that says attraversiamo, which I apologize to any Italian listeners because I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly. I first heard that word, as I'm sure many others have, through Eat, Pray, Love. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an unnecessary flex here by saying that I read Eat, Pray, Love way before the movie came out. Like when the book first came out, I was fortunate enough to get a copy that I still have that is very well worn because I've read it 1,000 times. And I think the book represented this part a little different than the movie. I don't know that I've actually even ever seen the movie all the way through. You know when a book is like so precious to you that like watching the movie just doesn't feel good because it's like, wait, no, that's not how it was supposed to be. And because, you know, they have to do it different in the movie. That's okay. I hold on to my little well-worn, well-loved book. And that's just the way I like to do it. Anyways, none of this is relevant, but the word in the book was relevant because Liz Gilbert, who is the writer and the main character, because it's a book that she's writing about her own life, she learned Italian and it was her favorite Italian word. She loved the way it sounded, the way it felt in her mouth. It had all the different pieces of the Italian language that she loved so much. And so she would say it a lot. So her and her friend were in Italy and just walking down the street and she would say attraversiamo. And that just means like let's cross over, like let's cross the street essentially. So it would cross the street and then cross the street because she just loved saying it so much, which, you know, is kind of adorable in itself. And it's so significant because I mean, that's her whole jam is constantly kind of like pivoting and finding a way that life is going to work for her. And that's something that I really identify with, which is why I remember little baby me all those years ago that first read the book was like, someday I'm going to get a tattoo with that word. And that was before I had ever gotten a single tattoo. So it was just a crazy thing to even think. And here we are now. And I'm so glad that I have this on my arm. Because it does remind me that sometimes I can just, if I need to cross the street, I can cross the street. If I need to make a change, I can. If I'm in the shade and the other side of the street has sunshine, I'm allowed to change my mind about which side of the street I'm walking on. And I do all the time. A little bit more quickly now in my life than I used to. I think about the many, I could name 1,000 examples of times that I have crossed to a different side of the street, metaphorically speaking, in my life. And I have always been glad I did. But for a really large part of my life, the feeling would not only be like, oh, thank goodness, now it's sunny over here. It would also be, why did I wait so long? Why did I let myself suffer like that? Why did I stay shivering in the shade when I could have crossed over to the sunshine? And two things have changed. Number one, I don't beat myself up for those kinds of things anymore because it takes what it takes. And number two, it doesn't take me that long anymore because when I want something to change, I spend way less time beating myself up for wanting to change at all. I notice that I want a change sooner than later. And pretty quickly, I'm like, all right, let's make this fucking change. Let's cross over. I like the sunshine. I'm going to cross the street. So a couple just examples in my, I don't know, last decade or so, or maybe 15 or so years of life, I can think of is when I started teaching yoga. And I was teaching yoga in a way that I was trying very hard to do it right. Really, every time I was walking on the quote unquote shady side of the street, just, you know, doing life the way I thought I was supposed to, it was exactly that. I was doing something the way I thought I was supposed to, and it didn't fit me and it didn't feel sunshiny. And yet it was like, no, I have to stay here. I have chosen this. And so I started teaching and was like this, I have like, this is the way flows are supposed to go. This is the kind of language you're supposed to use. These are the kind of places you're supposed to teach. And honestly, the pandemic happened and forced me to change the way I was teaching. Obviously forced things to be online. I began teaching much more. I already had been teaching to a recovery audience in sometimes, but it became a much bigger part of my world, teaching to folks who are in or seeking recovery. And all those kind of like shifts that happened without me necessarily being in charge of them happening, because again, pandemic is not something that I had any control over, of course, but like having to be like, oh, I'm going to do this online now. Oh, my other job can't pay me anymore. So now this has to be like, yoga's got to be like my main thing. Oh, when I do it in a way that feels more like me and not like the way, you're supposed to do it, all the cool kid teachers are doing it, people seem to be getting more out of it. And I'm getting that feedback because I'm teaching to this very specific community, many of whom are not yogis, so they don't know how it's quote unquote supposed to be. I've done these little quote fingers more times than I can count, and you can't even see me. But it was just like, oh, the thing that's working, the thing that's helping people, the thing that's making me love doing this is when I make a joke sometimes in the middle of class. It's when I describe a posture in a way using words that I've never heard anybody use that just work for me. They seem to work for other people. When during Shavasana, I don't worry so much about having the perfect, length and song and setting the stage in a way that is just the way I've seen it done before. Instead, saying the words that I know I needed to hear when I was early in recovery, when I was early in my yoga student years, that's the stuff. And that's the stuff that people are coming to me for. And so I was able to relatively quickly at that point cross over to the sunny side of the street and pivot the way I looked at my role as a teacher, the way I looked at the kind of students that I wanted to teach. I was able to, teach at a substance use treatment center shortly after that. And that changed everything too. There's just so many things that I think about that if I had stayed doing it the way I was supposed to, if I had stayed on that shady side of the street, there's people I wouldn't have helped, me being one of them. I also think about recovery. I think about the years and years and years of being in the shade, of being just so sick and so unhappy and so sure that even though it felt terrible, I was supposed to do 12-step, that I was supposed to call myself an alcoholic, that I was supposed to essentially make this thing live in my brain in this very specific way that is in many spaces the right way to do recovery and sobriety. I was supposed to use this language. I was supposed to think this way about myself. And when I found out that there was another way, it changed everything. When I crossed to the other side of the street, when I refused to be anonymous at all and became very out loud about what I'd gone through, when I said, no, I actually do need to take anxiety medication, even though I had been told that that wasn't what you were supposed to do. When there's so many things I could go down this road a lot longer. And I'm going to be really honest with you. It's scary to say these things out loud because there is a lot of discourse in recovery spaces that to this day says this is the way you're supposed to do it. And if you do it another way, or if you say that you've done it another way, then it's dangerous. It could hurt people. You're wrong. And I've been very fortunate to be in circles where that's not the case, where, all pathways are celebrated, all definitions of recovery are celebrated. Because I found that I didn't just need my own pathway. I needed my own definition, and I need my own end of the journey, not just the path to get somewhere. I needed to be able to decide where I was getting to begin with. And that's a story for another day. But knowing that I could cross to the other side of the street was not only life-changing, but life-saving. Another area that I can point to where I changed course pretty dramatically is career. And that's happened again and again. I have crossed over the street back and forth 100 times in my life. I have had so many careers. My resume could be a novel, and I'm honestly very proud of every single page. And when I decided that I wanted to build something that was just mine, I wanted to help people one-on-one in a way that I was not able to in my more corporate role, I decided I better get a license for that. It must be therapy that I want to do. I must want to be a clinical mental health person. And so I started a grad school program for clinical mental health counseling. I did that for a little while and it just didn't feel right, And so after a few semesters, I decided I'm allowed to change my mind about this. Let me try something else. And it was scary and it was expensive, and that expensive part of this lesson will last me now for lots of years, because I don't know if you've heard, but grad school is expensive and loans are expensive. Anyways, I shifted over into another program, into a clinical social work program. And I had the same experience where I'm like, okay, this is cool in a lot of ways. And also it just doesn't feel right. And the very long road to get to the point that I actually can do the work that I want to do, that I already am doing in some ways, felt like it didn't fit. It wasn't me. I was on the shady side of the street. So I decided I'm going to withdraw. And I withdrew from that program too. So that was like a good, God, how long was that? 2 years? Something like that, of my life that I put time and energy. I wrote huge papers, did enormous amounts of work. I spent enormous amounts of money that, I'm still spending, that I could have said, well, I've already, what is it called? The sunk cost fallacy. I've already done this much. There's no turning back now. And there was also this very loud part of my brain saying, you're not allowed to do something different until you get some kind of external permission, until you get this piece of paper. And I'm not saying that I'm trying to, act as a clinician without a license. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is that's not what I wanted to be. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not the way I wanted to help people. I just knew I wanted to help people. And I know how to do that. I do that. I've been doing that for years and years and years. And so I changed my mind and I took a new path. And that is a very small part of a much bigger story as well that is for another day. All of that to say, what I hope that this conversation and this podcast and any work that we might do together now or in the future helps you to see and do and be is that you're allowed to change anything, everything. You're allowed to cross over. You're allowed to find the sunshine. And sometimes that means finding a whole different street. Sometimes that means just crossing over to the other side. Sometimes there's a lot of fucking traffic that you've got to navigate in order to get there. Sometimes that just means stopping and just turning your head toward the sun. There's a whole spectrum of how hard it is to make changes, but the thing that is the through line for me, that I continue to have to remind myself all the time, so I'll continue to remind you too, is that this is your life. What you are living right now is your life. And it's so beautiful to live it in a way that is of service. I hope to never have my life not be in many ways one of service. And that means there's things that I do that I, aren't like not jumping for joy that I'm doing, but I get to do that in a way that works for me. And that makes me better at it. So I'm not saying that if you're having a rough day, burn down your life and start anew, abandon your home and family or something like that. But I am saying if something doesn't feel right, if you feel like you're in the shade and you really want to be in the sun, it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to do something about it. And that work starts on the inside. That work starts with even recognizing that something's not quite right. And that work starts with recognizing that you're allowed. That work starts with recognizing that the room that you feel like you are locked in, that you are trapped in, this life that might feel so stuck, it's very likely that the key is right in your hand. And I know how infuriating that can feel to hear when you feel really fucking stuck. I know, because I have been furious at that being said to me. and yet, again and again, I have found a way, not always overnight. Often it takes years and years, but to cross over to the other side of the street. And that brings me to the end of season 1 for Starfish Hypnosis. I love this podcast. Already we've done the attraversiamo thing, which I'm sure is just using that's so grammatically incorrect. Incorrectly. Oh my gosh, at least get English right, Elizabeth. Anyway, I've loved season 1. I love that this started out Starfish Diaries, which was the podcast name and named after a blog that I had many years ago. I love that a few, weeks, month ago, I don't even know. Time is hard to keep track of. I decided that didn't sum up what this podcast is, and I wanted hypnosis to be in the name because that's what I do, and that is the foundation of everything that we talk about here. And people are going to be able to find it more easily if I put that in the name. So I love that that's the name of it now. Who knows if that will always be the name of it? Probably not, because I'm constantly evolving, changing, and the things that I do evolve and change with it. And I love that this season 1 has been a lot of just this, of me having a thought I want to share with you and then talking through it. In season 2, I'm excited to do, have the freedom to do this too, but also add a little bit more, pepper in more of hopefully episodes that will be meaningful to you, that you could save, that you could share with a friend or family member, that you can go back to again and again. And yeah. And then we'll see what season 3 brings, because the plan is to be around for a long time. So whether this is your first episode or your 29th, 30th, I'm not actually sure what number we're on. I am just deeply grateful for your time and for your ear. I hope that you are looking towards the sunshine today, whatever that means for you. I'm going to continue to do that for me. Please be sure that you have hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you are listening to this podcast, because that way, when that new episode for season 2 comes out, which will probably just be in a couple weeks, you won't miss it. It will ping on your phone. It will automatically download. And that not only helps you to not miss an episode, that also is really helpful for me, because more people find podcasts that have more downloads. And if you are able to rate and review, that also really moves the needle and helps more people to find this show, hopefully when they need it the most. So we'll end there for now. This is not even close to goodbye. This is a see you later, and not even very much later. But let's take some breaths together as we close out this first chapter, looking towards the sunshine for our second. So wherever you are, see if you can just get a little bit of tension off of you. Can you just drop your shoulders down from your ears? Can you unclench in your jaw? Maybe unscrunch that little space between your eyebrows and take a deep breath in through your nose. Out with a sigh, let something go. Beautiful job. Another one. Big breath in. Twice as long this time. Lengthen that exhale. Good. The last one, we're going to hold. Big breath in. Hold at the top. If your shoulders are way up high, can you soften the shoulders? Keep holding. Maybe a smile. Maybe a swallow. One more moment. Open your mouth, let it go. Good job. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Find that sunshine. You are my sunshine. And I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please be sure that you have hit that subscribe button and send this episode to somebody who you think would enjoy it. You can find me on Instagram at Starfish Hypnosis. Same thing on Threads. And of course, if you'd like to work with me, go to my website at lizmckeen.com. A big thank you and hug to my dear friend Mo Houston at Joy Scout Studios, who created the beautiful artwork that is the cover for this podcast. And another big thank you to my editor-producer, Sean Gritters. He is incredible, and if you'd like to work with him, his email will also be linked in the show notes. We will see you next week.